brings you around nicely to, I don't know if you saw Warren Gatlin's article in The Telegraph earlier today where he said he's picked a hypothetical, if he was the Lions head coach and there was a Lions tour tomorrow, he picked his team that he would put out for the Lions. He's put 10 Irish players in there, he's put no Welsh players in there, but the pick that he's made, he's put Jack Conan at number 6 ahead of Peter O'Mahony when he's picking his team. Conan's just signed a new contract with Leinster today as well. He's had to maybe play from the fringes a little bit more during the Six Nations. Is Conan going to be the man ahead of Peter O'Mahony when the World Cup comes around, or is this just Warren Gatlin's individual preference in his back row options?
Yeah, I don't. Do you know what? I don't see it at the moment, and I don't see. I actually thought the balance, even when Conan came on, was very good at that moment in time. But for me at the moment, I wouldn't have Conan as the guy to take over from Peter whenever Peter finishes. I think it looks almost like Ty Byrne might go into that 6 jersey, because that seems like a really good balance as well. I just think that it's the height, it's the ground hugging, it's how they're balanced. I can see Conan in at number 8 sooner than I can see him in at number 6, not ahead of Caelan Doris, but as that opportunity to take over, to finish out the games, elements of that. His performance was good when he came on the other day. He's been a bit off the mark for him, and a lot of players come back off Lions tours and it takes a long time to get to recover because it takes an awful lot out of you. And I think that's been a case for it. The plus side for that is he's got a long run in till we get to the World Cup. So you'll have him in every single match day squad, that's for certain.
Yeah, I mean, you've called Doris world class there. Has Doris now got to the point, Keith, where he is indisputably the number 8 and that he should play there as opposed to playing at 6? Because there's always that option to move around, play someone else at 8 and play him at 6. Has Doris done enough now to be the starting 8 and that's no longer a question?
Yeah, I wouldn't put him at 6. I think he's an 8. And I think his lines are running and where it suits him. There are subtle differences and they suit him at 8. And I think he's far more effective for Ireland at 8.
2 players that were picked by Gatland in his hypothetical Lions team, who he didn't pick back in 2021. He's put James Ryan in there and he's put Johnny Sexton in as his captain. So maybe that's realising a mistake. When it comes to Sexton, we were chatting about it last night, Keith. He won't thank me for saying he's 38 this summer, but he is still going at the same pace that he was going at in 2018 or 2019. Just watching him at the weekend, huge game from emotionally, because he knew he was going to take the record. He knew it was his last game, probably for Ireland at the Aviva, certainly his last Six Nations game. He's going into contact, he's making things tick, he's driving his teammates. He's even admitting when he made that one mistake when it screwed off his boot at one point when he was trying to do a clearance back in his own 22. And at the same time, he's driving standards and playing as well as he was a few years ago, even as he approaches 38.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny he's 38. So that's what he won't argue with you over it. Look, he's playing. I think he's playing incredibly well. I was worried about him a couple of years ago. I was worried about him because he was on, maybe 3 years ago, because he was on the gain line all the time. I'm not anywhere nearly much as worried about him now. And I still think he went into too much contact the other day, but that's okay. I mean, he can't resist it, and he was fired up. He really was fired up and he was emotional, and I can understand all of those elements. And he has led unbelievably well. And he drives an awful lot of standards. I think when you talk about James Ryan is a different player to what he was a couple of years ago. He's put on more bulk. He is putting in a lot of tackles. He is using his hands very well. I think he's a more complete player than he was before. I thought he was jaded 2 or 3 years ago. I think he'd been through a period of time where he had played every minute of every game. And I don't know that he was necessarily old enough or had enough bulk on to be able to deal with the punishment that he was getting at that period of time. I just think he's matured into a far better player, and I think he looks absolutely integral to this team. I could also see him stuck into, like, he's playing on the tight head side of the scrum. That's tough. It's hard on him, hard on the body. and he seems to be relishing it. So, yeah, of course he's going on the lines. You're dead right.
And it was a position as well, Keith, I think on that tight end side of the second row that Joe Schmidt was always trying to kind of beef up a little bit, even in the early stages of his career, where John Klein became very much favoured at that point for the physicality he could add on that side. So probably, as you say, the body shape of Ryan and maybe just a bit more of his experience as well has probably helped to bring him up a level in the last year or two.
Well, I look, again, I sound like I'm worrying a lot of these guys. I'm not really, but I worried a little for the fact that he was very young when he started. He played 80 minutes in an awful lot of the games. I mean, I think, did he win the first 22 or 3 matches that he played, including a Grand Slam and a Heineken Cup? You kind of don't want to get him off the field, but you still need to build up a body of work into the body to be able to take that, and playing that number of matches takes an awful lot out of you. I kind of half think that not going on that Lions tour may have been the best thing for him. Not that it would suit him, and it definitely would have affected him and would have upset him an awful lot. But he's come back from that slightly more bitter, slightly bigger, stronger, incredibly effective.
Bundy Aki joked with us at the weekend that he doesn't see Johnny Sexton actually retiring in December. The way he sees it is Johnny Sexton is playing far too well now that someone's going to have to convince him to play on beyond the World Cup. Is it not, though, the perfect way to go out where everyone's going to remember Johnny Sexton, Keith, if he does retire at the end of the World Cup, going out at very close to the top of his game?
I think so. I think it's look, he's fighting against age at this stage, and there's something unbelievably wonderful about that, but at some stage age is going to win. So if he can do it on his terms, how great would that be?
Looking forward to the World Cup itself, Brian Driscoll was saying that he never really believed in the 4 World Cup teams that he went with that there was actually the strength there to win the World Cup. He said you're always hopeful to go as far as you possibly can, but he didn't think within the group there was probably a strong enough team to win it. He said last night he genuinely believes there's enough strength in this team to go on and win a World Cup. Would you agree with him?
I do, actually. I think that would be a fair call on it. I wouldn't if everybody was glorying in the Grand Slam, and we are unbelievably happy about it. But the recognition that there's an awful lot further for the team to go is one of the things that I find a bit comforting. We had a good few guys injured last weekend. And when they all come back in again, it then becomes a pretty horrible squad to have to pick for a World Cup. You're going to be leaving out some really, really good players. So that makes it very interesting. I do think so. I do think we have to be able to get over those nerves. If they come again, I don't think that England had the tools to be able to dismantle us on that nervous start, but other teams could. I'm thinking against France.
I was going to say, I'm thinking France at home. It's a team who've won 20 out of 21 at home. We've seen France after the Ireland game respond as well as they have. Maybe they looked a little bit scratchy the first few weeks, but they were impressive as they finished the championship out. You can't afford to give a team maybe that type of performance that Ireland gave in the first half if they were to beat France on home soil, if that's how the draw was to work out.
No, and in many respects, that turns out to be the perfect Six Nations for us. A Grand Slam, which it's our 4th in our history, right? That's pretty bloody amazing. And not everything was perfect, so there's an awful lot to work on, I think, is the piece that brings us into the World Cup with enough of an edge, where there's nothing being taken for granted, that there's no sense of complacency setting in.
That's part of a much longer rugby conversation, which you can pick up now in podcast form in the OTB Rugby feed, wherever you pick up your podcasts.